We're here on location at the ALA Conference 2019 in London, and I am joined by David Cox, CEO of ALA, to talk about business risk mitigation. Because David, we've got this themed week going, and I thought it would be really great to have your input, because my personal opinion, and it's what I always advocate on Property Tribes, is that certainly for newcomer landlords starting out, one of the best ways to mitigate risk is to work with a reputable and professional agent such as an ALA member.
Yep, absolutely. There are a huge number of laws that landlords need to comply with, and the fines are massive. They can be banned, they can have control of their property taken off them, and the local authority keeping the rent, but them still having to pay for all the bills. And there are massive risks out there for self-managing landlords. A professional agent, and particularly a property market agent, are qualified, so they know what they are doing. They are kept up to date by us on all the new legal changes, so you have got a much greater chance of ensuring you will comply with all the laws. You will find good tenants that want to stay in the property for a long time, that will pay the rent on time by using an ALA member, and most importantly for new landlords, client money protection.
Yes.
That is one of the biggest things I would say. Make sure your letting agent has client money protection. It's the equivalent of the ABTA and the ATOL for the property industry. You wouldn't go on holiday unless your agent and your travel operator was ABTA or ATOL. Make sure they have client money protection. It's a CMP. If the agent goes bust or runs off with your money, they've got CMP, we give it you back. If they haven't, you lose it all.
No, that's a very good tip and a very good way to mitigate risk. And you know, I think we counted it up recently, and we believe there are now 182 government statutes and regulations to be a compliant landlord. As we've already been saying, not you know, the sort of newcomer landlord probably hasn't got the awareness of that. Not to mention all the other stuff that's coming down the pipe that we know is currently in consultation as well. And I think, you know, we're talking regulatory risk as well, because as you said, if you get something wrong, you can be fined up to £30,000. That's a massive risk.
It's a huge amount of money. You've not got a licence, £30,000. Inadvertent breach of that licence, £5,000 a pop. And we're talking, particularly in the letting sector now, breach of the tenant fee ban, that's £5,000 every fee. So, you know, for example, you let, and this is a self-managing landlord, lets to maybe a group of 5 students, charges each one of those £200 fee. They are liable not to one £5,000 fine, but one for each of those 5 students. So that's a £25,000 fine. And to make it worse, if that fee includes referencing an inventory, that's not one £5,000 fine, that's 2. So that 25,000 becomes 50,000 for £1,000 worth of fees. The fines are massive in a lot of pieces of legislation. Some even have got unlimited fines now. Prison sentences are attached to it. Yep. So the regulatory regime is really coming down on landlords. The fines are punitive. There are prison sentences and criminal charges attached to some of them. They have to know what they're doing, because if an enforcement agent comes and knocking, the consequences are dire.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, managing business risk is all about doing due diligence, and you know, landlords out there thinking about using a letting agent, it's not just a case of, you know, going to the first agent they see in the high street. They need to find agents that are fully compliant, and that is one of the benefits of working with a property mark agent, that you cover all the compliance. You have a team of 60 people keeping up to date with the legislation, making sure all your agents are communicated with on that. So again, working with a reputable, regulated professional agent that has joined Property Mark, you know, voluntarily to commit to professional standards, it's got to be a good business risk mitigation approach, hasn't it?
I think that is really one of the most important aspects when looking for a letting agent. Now, don't be just governed by price.
Yes.
Check that, do your due diligence, that they know what they are doing. So we've got on our website, for example, some questions that you can go and ask, which every ALA agent will know the answers to. You know, what do I need to do on things like right to rent checks, holding deposits once the tenant fee ban comes in. Yeah, make sure that they know the answers to some of these basic questions, because if they don't, they're breaking the law. Yeah. And a landlord is as eligible for fines as the agent is in these situations. It's why our members have to be trained. They have to have a qualification up to an A-level standard in lettings and property management before they're even allowed in. We keep them up to date with all new laws. They have to do CPD. We're here at Arla Conference. It's the biggest single opportunity to do CPD every year. But it's about making sure, one, they know what they're doing to start with, two, they're being kept up to date, three, that they're being held accountable when they do things wrong. So, you've already got deposit protection for tenants. For landlords, they've got the ombudsman. So make sure the agent that you're using is a member of one of the ombudsman schemes. But even if you're not happy, and the ombudsman can give the landlord financial redress, they can then come and complain to us, and our independent disciplinary tribunal will look at their conduct and can fine them up to an expulsion from the organisation to make sure that they are doing what they are supposed to be doing and that they are abiding by Arla standards.
Indeed. Now, you've produced some really useful resources for agents and landlords, and you've just announced today the release of your tenants fee ban kind of guide, haven't you? And I got that in my inbox this morning, actually. So landlords can access these resources as well via the Arla website, can't they?
I'm afraid only members can access the full tenant fees toolkit, but there will be a number of webinars that we'll be doing. We're doing a number of regional meetings where I'm going to be going out over the next couple of months in advance of the tenant fees ban coming in, where we will be going through the Tenant Fees Act in great detail, because people hear tenant fees, they think letting agents, but landlords charge fees as well. So it is a tenant fees ban, not a letting fees ban, and therefore self-managing landlords that charge £25 reference, that's going to get caught. That's a £5,000 fine. So landlords and self-managing landlords really need to understand this as well. The ban also doesn't just ban fees. There's loads of other changes. Deposits, 5-week deposit cap. So self-managing landlords, no more pet premiums any longer. You can't charge a higher deposit for pets. If you've got more, you're going to have to give it back if the tenancy renews. There's a lot of quite complex law that landlords can fall foul of, and the fines are punitive. So they really do need to know what they are dealing with in the next few months.
They do indeed. And I think just as we kind of close out here, David, I think agents and local knowledge are such a useful resource for landlords, particularly when you're just starting out. Most property mark agents would be more than happy for a landlord to pop in for a cup of tea, talk about tenant demand in the area, the type of properties that are in high demand. They're there as a resource for landlords as well.
The agent is the local expert. They know their patch like the back of their hand. They've been valuing it, renting properties in it, usually for years and years and years. They know the type of tenants that are around, the sort of their desires, what they can afford. Should it be furnished? Should it be unfurnished? And what is your demographic? Are you a student landlord? Are you a professional landlord? What is your target demographic? What is the best for this area? What will achieve you the highest rent? But rent isn't necessarily always, you could have really high rent. Student properties have really high maintenance as well. Yep. So, what is the best for the property you've got or the property you're looking at? That is what a good local expert agent, like a Property Mark member, will be able to provide.
Indeed. I think we're in such challenging conditions at the moment in the private rented sector, and the market is not as forgiving as perhaps it used to be. Mistakes can cost more, and I think it's a great time that we are having our business risk mitigation week, and I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, it is. There's so much going on. April is always the time where you really want to be thinking about compliance, because statutory instruments, the minute laws that come from the Act of Parliament that actually implement them and bring them into force, they come into force basically twice a year, 6th of April and 1st of October. So the beginning of April is where we get a raft of new laws. Now we had one yesterday, we've had two yesterday, sorry, on the 1st of April. But
it wasn't an April Fool.
No, it wasn't. No, they really have changed them again. But this is exactly the time. These are the new laws, these are the existing laws. Make sure you're compliant, because we're getting a lead enforcement authority for the lettings industry, private rented sector. We're going to see, hopefully, a lot more enforcement against the rogue operators. So now is the time to get out, make sure your properties are up to standard, and make sure you complied with all the law, and then you're absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about it. You can sit back and manage your property nice and happily with rent coming in.
And have that peace of mind.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your insights, David. Been so valuable talking to you as part of our Business Risk Mitigation Week. And do stay tuned. We've got a lot more to come on Property Tribes, but certainly do, if you're looking to work with an agent, do check out their credentials and the ALA Property Mark sign, which is certainly gaining kind of awareness amongst consumers, tenants as well, is a really good way to find your way to a reputable and professional agent.